Okay, so what we did in class on Tuesday was create the drum and bass sequence. The first thing I did was I sequenced a real simple drum beat. I'm just going to make that happen 32 bars because that's the requirements of the assignment. Your song should be at least 32 measures long. Now, how this differed from the last project was instead of just being drums or percussion, is now we're going to do a bass line. So we can either use the MIDI synth or over here in the browser, you can also choose the presence synth. And like normal, I'm going to go and choose some sort of instrument that makes sense. I'm not going to spend too much time. That sounds interesting. Okay. Then once we chose a bass, the next step was to concoct some sort of motif, some sort of repeating pattern that can be repeated or evoked in other parts of your composition. The motif is generally a short rhythmic passage or a short melodic passage, and bass lines are made for motifs. So I recommended a simple eighth note based motif. So let me see if I can recreate it. I did mine in G minor, put a root and an octave, and then I did a little riffity doodah on the end of 3, went to the 5th, and back to the octave. Something like this. Now, once I have my motif in place, I might as well make that go a few times. Maybe make it happen up through measure 4. And then measure 5, I might go in and edit that content so as to reflect a chord change. So here's that measure 5. I'm going to highlight that information. And a real common change in music theory is to go from the 1 chord, which is what this is. This is basically just a G minor chord. I'm going to scoot this up to a C. So it's basically the same riff, but now it starts on C. Right, now it's like the second part of the verse. Right? The lyric goes through a change. Maybe some background vocals come in. Let's make that happen 4 times. And what the heck? Measure 9. Let's bring that first riff back. So you see how easy it is to arrange a song with a DAW. I'm going to make that happen 4 times. Looks like things are going well. Now it's typically wise to move through more than just 2 chords. Maybe we can go to let me go to the 5 chord here in measure 12. So now this will be on D. So the first note will be on D. See if we can go down a low 5 chord. Maybe make that happen 4 times. So was method 1. Just concoct some sort of measure-long motif and see if you can arrange it by moving it through various chords. The other strategy I recommended was to do a live recording. So if we enable the track by clicking on the Record Enable button, and if I get my QWERTY keyboard up, I can play in real time. Now, as long as I got my metronome on, when I press play or record, I'll hear that metronome and I'll be able to lay down some MIDI data in real time. Let's try that. Now, if I press record, I can try to lay down something in real time. Okay. That will have to be good enough for the purposes of this demonstration. Then what is critical is you open up that recording that you just made in your editor. And once you can see the totality of the MIDI data you just added, go ahead and highlight that stuff. And then on Studio One, it's this letter Q to quantize. Gives you some options. We're going to quantize the 8th notes. And once I have my settings, I can change it to quarter notes if I played slower rhythms, but I think I was doing some 8th note rhythms. And then click apply. And then everything gets locked on to the grid. So notice that there's nothing slightly off like here's beat 2 of measure 22. There's nothing here-ish. Everything is locked in to the beat. Well, that's handy. So you might want to try a combination. Maybe this is what happens at measure 16. It started real square and dorky, and it's going to go into this fantasy part. And then what the heck, maybe the back half of the song. All right. The main point of this class isn't so much the excellence of your musical composition, but to get one run through of how to go through a process. And I'm almost there. So now I got my 32 bars. I'm going to have to bring up my mixer so I can get rid of these peaks, because look over here, I'm peaking by 2 decibels. That's no good. So I'm going to make some modest adjustments. Seems like I'm in the clear. And I'm going to put my loop indicator over all of the information. And I'm going to export mixdown. We'll call that drum and bass sequence.